It is the third week of Thirstday here during FeBREWary on DC101, and we should be used to what's going on now. We're going to talk to a local craft brewery about their brewery and about the beer they make, and hopefully get into a very interesting conversation about beer. I'm joined today by, I assume, judging by the name, Matt Rose, one of the owners of BarkingRose Brewing Company and Farm. Matt, thank you for joining us for our Thursday virtual hang.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Rich. I'm glad to be here.
I guess the first question is, was I right? Are you one of the owners of BarkingRose?
I am. Yeah, me and my wife are the owners. So it's the Roses own the place. We're very fancy with our naming, you know.
So, look, there's a number of things I want to get into with you. I've got your current beer list in front of me, and I've got so many questions about it. All of them great and fantastic, and the uniqueness of your beer list is really what's got me kind of jazzed to speak with you. But first, I want to start with the and farm part of your name, BarkingRose Brewing Company and Farm. For a lot of breweries, there is a farm element, but the farm element isn't the same in all of the breweries. Some breweries just call it farm because of the land they have, and they're able to have a more expansive outdoor areas. Some breweries grow food and crops on their land. Some grow the ingredients that they use in their brewery. So what does the and farm mean for BarkingRose?
For us, it is just, well, we do have 11 acres, so we got a lot of property, but primarily everything I grow on the farm is stuff I use in the beer. Now, it's not everything I use. Obviously, I would need a very large farm for that. But I do use it to supplement, especially we'll do like harvest time beers and stuff like that with hops.
Will you, I assume you use like the fruits, if you put any fruit
Yep.
or in your beers, you'll grow your strawberries, your raspberries, your blueberries on the
Yes.
farm.
Yeah, and goji berries, which is an interesting fruit to have in a beer. I didn't even know. My wife just bought goji berry plants and said, "Hey, we should put these at the farm." And I said, "Sure." And apparently they grow well. It always made me laugh. But no, so yeah, we have hop fields. They're growing. Actually, I'm expanding them about an acre this year, this coming spring. And we have, like you were saying, raspberry plants, blueberry plants, cherry plants. Goji berry. We have a couple of fruit trees that aren't fruit bearing yet because we haven't been there long enough for them to get large enough for that, but we will as we go on. And all of them will be used as ingredients in the beer.
I'm very glad you brought up hops. I would like to nerd out for a second. We've reached the nerd portion of our conversation. In talking with a number of breweries over the years, the Mid-Atlantic, not an easy place to grow hops, but that's I don't want to say it's changing, but it's here's what I will say. It seems to me as if there are more people willing to put in the work to optimize as well as possible the Mid-Atlantic region for growing hops. What is your experience with hop growing in specifically Virginia now?
Well, it's weird. So I actually, when I started up at the location we're at, I called Virginia Tech because they have an agriculture department that has a hop subgroup that they actually help me out with a lot of their stuff. But the hop plants themselves over the years have been developed to become more robust. And what's happening is something you might have planted 10 years ago that wouldn't have done well in Virginia would do well now because it's been optimized almost, you know what I mean, as they develop better and better vines. So we're just growing at the moment Cascade, which is a fairly easy hop to grow. It's a nice, gentle, but still kind of, you get a nice fruit character, a little tropical orange almost. And it grows well in the soil we have. So in that sense, it's anywhere that it gets that you can grow a decent set of like grapes, you should be able to grow some sort of hop.
So what is this is a prognostication question. I'm not going to hold you to this. Come back in 10 years going, Matt Rose told me. What's your optimistic prognosis for the future of hop growing on the East Coast, specifically the Mid-Atlantic? Is it going to be a place where brewers in this region can reliably get their hops from?
You know, I don't think you'll ever get more than a few varietals around here. Part of the reason being, you don't get the microclimates that you're looking for in, even Idaho or Michigan or the West Coast. You don't get those long summer days except the farther up north you go, and that's part of it. Hop growing needs that dry, weird microclimates where the plants don't get wet, and you need long summer days. And to get that, you kind of want the farther northern you go. I know the southern tier of New York is starting to do some decent number of hop grows up there, and I don't know what their soil's like, but I did just order some, so we'll find out if I like the hops they grew there. And hopefully, yeah. So I don't know if it's ever going to take over, but you know what? 7 years ago, I wouldn't have told you that Idaho was going to take over either, and here you have Idaho as a hopland. I don't know. So it's there. It's there if people are willing to put the work in. It's there if somebody's willing to put like a pelletizing facility and a drying packaging facility to go with it. I hope so. Gosh, if only that I could buy half my hops.
Yeah, and that's, I think, my last question before we leave Nerd Corner of Thirstday and open up our first. Well, looks like Matt's already opened up his first beer. I'll open up my first beer. What's the? Look, you say if somebody's willing to put the work in. We've seen over the last 10 years that there are people who are willing to put the work in. Last question on hops. Why does it matter? Why is it important to a brewer, a brewery owner, a consumer, that the hops are as close to where the brewery is brewing the beer as possible?
It first off, I'm a huge proponent of buy local as I can. So in that sense, I love to keep the local economy rolling, period. I'm a small business. I depend on people coming in and buying my stuff locally. And then I try to do the same. All the stuff I work with, as much as I can, I get as local as possible. Most brewers are like that. I think the other thing is, so if you're looking for certain things, most time of the year, you're using pelletized hops. Pelletized hops are packaged and stored in nitrogen bags and the last 2-3 years, depending. But if you're doing fresh hop beers, if you're looking for something that is right off the vine, you want it local because you want it overnighted to your place so you can use it the next day from harvest. So that's those sort of things I've done in the past. I've gone in with guys and we've overnighted stuff from the West Coast, and we're talking a truck driving or air freight, and it takes, oh God, it costs more to ship it than it does to buy the hops, but right. That's the only way to get it usable.
All right, I'm ready to drink. You have given me, and this will be a great jump off point to the actual beer, the beer list at BarkingRose. You have given me a Doppelbock, which I would prefer to have second, unless, of course, you're going to tell me that the Belgian-Style Blonde Ale is what I should drink second for whatever reason. But I would prefer the Doppelbock second.
Yes, I would drink the Doppelbock second. Yeah, that'll kill your palate otherwise.
All right, good. I'm glad you said that. As I open up, and by the way, I need this beer. I just finished a workout, and I don't know if anybody saw, but I was toweling off while Matt was giving some answers there. So I'm a sweaty mess. So a cold beer is going to hit the spot. And luckily, the good people at BarkingRose gave me a growler's worth of the beer. So I have plenty of beer to quench my thirst today. As I pour, here's my question. I love your beer list because you threw a bone to IPA lovers, but this is not an IPA brewery.
No.
I've talked to a couple of brewery owners who are not IPA breweries, but I want to get your take. Why did you pivot away? Why'd you zag while everybody was zigging into IPAs, and IPAs?
Well, I'll tell you what, I really do like IPAs, but they're not my favorite to drink. Like in the realm of like top, second tier, third tier, I do like IPAs, and I like a good IPA on certain days. But most of the time, if I'm grabbing a beer, I'm grabbing a lager or I'm grabbing a Belgian ale, and I figure, cheers. I figure, what's the point in owning a brewery if you don't get to brew what you love to drink? So it's the that's really, it was just, I'm glad that other people enjoy drinking what I make too.
All right, so I've got some follow-ups, obviously, but I want to taste this beer first. This is called Conviction. It is a Belgian-style blonde ale. High ABV on this, 7.3, but I assume because it's a blonde ale, it's going to be a little bit lighter on my palate than what I would expect from a typical 7+ beer. Walk me through what I'm going to experience during my sip of the Conviction.
Conviction is it's a traditionally brewed, very low kind of ingredient list on purpose. So with Belgian beer, a lot of times the star is the yeast. The yeast gives you character,
Right.
the yeast gives you flavor, the yeast gives you spice or fruit or whatever else you're looking for. And for this beer, I chose just a couple malts to go with it. Like literally, it's a 2 malt beer. It's Pilsner, and then I use a little melanoidin, it's called, which is just for some body. And then we use some regular sugar, candy sugar, it's called, but we use sugar in it to dry it out just a hint and let the yeast do its thing. And you get this nice spice flavor. You get a little bit of almost like a fruit character at the back, and it finishes crisp. And frankly, it doesn't taste like the alcohol content. And you don't realize it until you've had 2 or 3, and then you try to stand up.
I want to give you a second to brag on it because I see an award was won for it very, very recently. So first off, congratulations on the award. Secondly, please share what the award was for and where it was gotten. Received.
So every year, the Virginia Craft Brewers Guild puts on a competition. It's every September, essentially. The beginning of September is when they announce the winners, and it's the Virginia Craft Brewers Guild medals. There's 10 categories, and you're allowed to enter 3 beers. So this guy got a bronze this year in the pale ale category, which made me laugh. I know it's because they collapse categories down certain ways, but I was listening online because we're all remote from COVID, and they said pale ale Conviction. I said, what other jerk named a beer Conviction? And then they said BarkingRose, and I said, oh, me.
I'm the jerk.
I'm the jerk. Yeah. So that was my I was sitting at the table with my wife and kids, and I'm like, I'm happy. I'm confused, but I'm happy.
That is that's extremely strange. And now I want to talk about my impressions of the beer, and this is a great jump. This is a great jumping off point. Pale ale is probably my favorite go-to style of beer, because it's not as hot blowout as an IPA. And I think pale ales are a very underrated beer. You've got one on tap, I see here, Farmer's Tan, which I would be looking forward to trying if we were doing a real hang at BarkingRose today. So when I taste this, I go, I don't know how this got into the pale ale category. Nonetheless, congratulations. Now let's talk about this beer. And I told you I love the beer list because of the zag while everybody's zigging. However, I'm not a huge fan of Belgian beers. You have a whole German-style lager section that is exciting me to no end. I see a pale ale on the menu that is exciting me to no end. But if we were in person, I would probably gently nudge you away from recommending Belgian beers to me because I find the yeasts a little too overpowering normally. That clovey banana flavor isn't really my cup of tea when I'm drinking a lot of when I'm having a beer drinking session.
Sure.
Having said that, the thing I really like about this beer is that cloviness is there, but it's not killing me. And I wouldn't even say killing my palate. It's not to the point where me, a guy who is really hypersensitive about too much clove for Belgians, I don't want any. This for me feels more accessible. And if this would be the typical, oh, you don't like Belgians? Try this Belgian. And then I would sip it and I would go, I like this. And you would go, it's a Belgian. And I would go, what? And then we would go along. So that's my kind of non-Belgian loving review of this really tasty Belgian blonde.
I appreciate it. I'm a fan of subtle to a degree. I know it's not kind of in vogue at times, but I like subtle beers. I like, every once in a while you like to get hit over the head with a flavor, and that's great. But for me, a lot of times I like something that's just, understated almost, but not quite. And on the edge of just so you can, it heats up and you get a little more of the character. You get some of the delicate flavors in the back. And if you overpower it with one flavor, you don't get all the breadth that you get inside of a nice beer. And I like that. That's some of my favorite parts of a good beer. So I appreciate it. It is one of those, if you don't like Belgian beers, but you're willing to try one, give it a shot. And this
is it. Yeah, this is it. And it gets me thinking about the beer list in general. Why you decided to go lean away from the IPAs and into another style is an extensive Belgian list, a very solid German style lager list. That's what you like.
Mm-hmm.
How has the reception been from your consumers to your beer list?
Great. I have found, I've been doing this for almost 10 years now. I've been lucky enough to do it for that long. And you get people that you get them this intro to a style they've never had. Or they might not have necessarily enjoyed the one or two that they've had at one time. And, we have anywhere from 14 to 18 beers on tap at a time, or I try to. And I like to make sure that there's something for everybody. And the nice thing about Belgian beer is Belgians for me you've got all of that German technical know-how from the one side of Belgium. And on the other side, you got France with all of their winemaking know-how. And then you got Belgians in the middle saying, well, we don't really care about the rules very much. So we're just going to do what we want. And you know what? Throw some fruit in there. You know what? Just let it run wild. We'll just walk away and we'll see what happens. And I like that about it. It's fun. It's one of those things.
Having said that, though, if you are someone who really loves Belgian beers, there is an expectation of quality. And look, if I'm going to drink a Belgian, it better damn well be an excellent Belgian, because of all of the reputation that Belgian beers have.
Absolutely. There's nothing quite like a great Belgian beer, in the same way that there's nothing quite like a terrible Belgian beer. There's very, the flavors in a great Belgian beer are harmonious and they're fantastic and you love drinking it. And in a bad Belgian beer, you immediately take a sip and you're like, something just doesn't taste right to me. And we've all had those over the years, and so for whatever reason. So, my personal priority is always, first off, make sure the beer doesn't suck. And then second off, make sure that the flavors that you want are in there. So that's my, I've been brewing this one for, at this point, I think 8.5 years. I've been brewing this exact recipe and I haven't had to change it since. I brewed it one day because I wanted a Belgian blonde and I couldn't find the one that I wanted the flavor wise in my mouth. And I got home and my wife says, hey, Stenat, you own a brewery, just brew it. And I was like, well, what happens if people don't want to drink it? Turns out they did. So I'm okay with that.
They did. And, to your point about your beer list, this is one of those situations where if you were the only brewery in Fauquier County, you probably couldn't get away with this beer list. But the fact is, because we have a number of breweries, no matter where we live, what region of the country we live in, there is a place for, okay, today I want to drink 4 beers and I want them all to be IPAs. I'm going to this brewery. Absolutely. Today I want no IPAs, and now I've got this brewery to go to.
It is being able to actually have a niche in the industry, something that you focus on, is nice. And that only exists if you've got other guys kind of supporting you in the area. Frankly, you can't, if you're the only place, you've got to do the big hits and that's it. And you almost can't do anything else. You can't explore what your passion is. And that's rough. That's got to be rough for places like that. Luckily I have, friends 2 miles that way, 2 miles that way, and 2 miles that way that I can, if somebody's like, well, I really want some hops, I'm like, well, Altered Suds is right down the road. Right. And they've got like 6 that are super great and you could try them out. Or they're saying, well, I'd like something a little out there. Well, Kevin over at Powers is doing some very interesting things with every single beer seems to have something that he farms in it, and that's amazing. I love that in Fauquier.
Right. And today we're going traditional.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to BarkingRose.
Right.
And I love, the thing is, when I say traditional, I mean recipes brewed the way they were supposed to be brewed. And for me, and you might not know this about me, Matt, but that for me is the mark of a good brewer. So I think some people might think, oh, traditional, so the boring styles. No, not the boring styles, because if you're going to execute a German style lager, you better be precise in your ingredients and in your brewing recipe, because if you botch it, it's horrific.
Yeah, I'll tell you, when I'm trying to a new place and I don't know anything about it, first, if they have a lager on tap, if they have a Pilsner, or if they have just a gold lager of some sort, come first. Because first off, it's not going to ruin my palate. And second off, it'll give me an idea of how good are they? How's their consistency? What's their product line feeling like? It's a hard thing to do well. And the guys, especially my friends that do it consistently so well, I can't speak highly enough of some of these dudes that we have floating around Virginia who just make great beers day in, day out, especially lagers.
I want to talk about the Doppelbock.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of the German style, first off, thank you for getting a Doppelbock in my hands, because as much as I do love traditional German style lagers, this is probably the one that is, I don't want to say, here's what I'm trying to say. The common style German style lagers that you see, this is probably, if you consider this a common style, which I'm not sure that you would, but if you would, this would be the one that I'm least familiar with.
I have been on the Doppelbock train since officially the age of 21, and I am never. I feel like everybody who has not had one needs to at least try it, because there's something about the style that it's a malt forward. It's dark, but it doesn't finish dark like a stout. You've got some real nice caramel character, some raisin character in the background. You've got body on it, but it's not over sweet. It's just everything that I've ever really enjoyed in a lager, and it's got a clean finish. They were originally brewed by monks in Germany to drink during Lent, because they needed they were fasting, so they needed liquid that would be bread, essentially. That's kind of where it grew from, and it's a nice hearty lager, if that makes any sense, which is kind of a misnomer, I get, but they're great. I love the style.
All right, well, let's let me take a sip. And again, I thank you so much for getting it into my hands, because it's a style that I don't get into my hands very often. And it's one of those things when you are going into a brewery or your favorite beer and wine store, and you look at a list, it's a word that you don't know. So you don't want to come off sounding dumb. So instead of asking about it, you just go somewhere else. So you kind of go out of your way to not try it because the word is a little intimidating.
Yeah, it's just German for Doppelbock, but and which, Germans, it's always fun. But it's, man, I don't know. It's supposed to be this really kind of, you get this almost, it's not coming through great in the thing, but you almost get this ruby red color, clear, a nice foamy looking head to go with it, some good lacing, and just, yeah, it is, I want to say it's almost like drinking liquid bread, but dark, great tasting bread in a very good way for me. Some of my favorite beers.
I see why you are using a lot of words that don't normally go together as I took my sip, because you're right. In my, the first thing I'm thinking to myself is, this is a hearty beer, but then on the finish, it's kind of a clean and kind of a crisp, kind of a lager type finish.
Yeah.
But in your mouth, it's like eating a piece of bread. So it goes back and forth in one sip.
I'll tell you what, it's also the reason why I like cooking with it. This is the beer I put in chili because this gives all the flavors in a good chili for me, and it, you know, breaks. But it's oh heck, man, I don't even know. Some, like I said, some of my favorite beers. You've got Troegenator, Celebrator, Salvateur, Duck Rabbiter, all those guys. They make these just delicious styles, and I will be forever drinking Doppelbocks because of it. It's just it's my thing.
Now, it is a little bit deceptive though. Yours is 8.4%. So this is something that you probably should sip as a heavy beer rather than going for a lager to quench your thirst.
Yeah, we do a gold lager for that. That's the 5% beer that you can just keep drinking almost like a lawnmower beer. That's the I do run into this problem that I just want to brew what I want to brew, and then every once in a while I look at the beer list and I'm like, man, I need to brew more beers so people can drink more than 2. So
where's my sessions? Where are my sessions beer?
Yeah,
I don't have any sessionable beers here.
It's a problem I have. I forget that not everybody is both my size and drinks as much beer as me. So I have to think
now, as much as we. Well, yes, exactly. So we bragged on the Belgian-Style Blonde winning the bronze medal, and this actually did a little bit better than the bronze. So what did this win at that awards ceremony?
This got a silver at the silver in the Bock category, so it was in the right category for me. It's a silver. Yeah, it's a Bock. So this got a silver, and I've been brewing it for a long time. It's called Kelsenator. It's named after I have poodles, Standard and Mini. So this is named after my old miniature poodle Kelsey, which is why it's Kelsenator. And I always try to describe it. It's like her. It's sweet with a little bit of a bite at the end. So this did get a silver, and this has been something I've always loved the style. But then when I moved to Fauquier County, I switched from Fairfax County water to a well, just a nice well on site. And you have to do water is 90 to 95% of your product, right? So it matters a lot. So we did a lot of testing on the well. We didn't actually do much treatment because it turns out the water's really nice, and the lagers have really enjoyed it. I have been really pleased with how the lagers have turned out on the new water. I can't take credit for it. It's not me doing it. It's the water.
I thought this conversation was fantastic, and I don't want to, speaking of clean water, I don't want to muddy this conversation by talking about pandemic stuff. So what I will ask you is, if I were to walk into BarkingRose, non-pandemic edition, what's the vibe like? I have a friend who I co-host my head retention podcast with, and her mantra is, I should be able to walk in and tell what the vibe of the place is within 5 minutes of sitting down. So within 5 minutes of sitting down, what would I realize about BarkingRose?
It's low key. It's a farm. It's family friendly, but not in the sense that kids are running around everywhere, so much in the sense that people are encouraged to sit, relax. It's a very low key feeling. We have fire pits outside. You sit, you have a couple of beers, you get some food, you chill with your friends for 2 hours, and it's almost like the feeling of a winery, a nice winery when you walk in, but more of a blue collar feeling winery. That's kind of the feel that we have going, and that's the feel I like.
Yeah, and to me, that's what I seek out in my brewery experience. I don't want a bar.
No.
I want to hang, and I don't like wine. I mean, I shouldn't say I don't drink wine consistently, so I'm not going to a winery, but I want the winery experience with my beer though. So I like that blue collar winery type description because it kind of sums up everything that in my head I want.
It's funny. I feel like I planned it, but on the one hand, I think the breweries just end up taking on the emotion, whatever the personality of the people who work there, the owners, the staff, that everybody. That's just kind of the feel that you get as you grow into a place. The staff kind of makes the feeling. If you can set the table, but how well they do is really the most important part for something like that. Like a nice experience is really important on just how good's your bartender, you know? And that's so that we're real happy with, we have some great people working and I love them to death. And it's just wonderful to have them working there.
That is so well put that I am not even going to try to follow that up with anything other than BarkingRose Brewing Company and Farm. Please give me the socials so people want to follow you, because here's the thing, especially Instagram. I asked the question non-pandemic edition. The reality is we are in a pandemic edition, but we want to know as soon as possible, first of all, what you guys can do now. And secondly, when it's like, all right, we're back at 100%. Let's do this hang that Matt described, and we'll know that through your socials. So, what are the socials? What's the website?
Website is just barkingrose.com. Facebook is facebook.com/barkingrose, and I think Instagram is just BarkingRose Brewing is our at BarkingRose Brewing, because somebody stole Barking Rose before I registered it. It's upsetting.
Son of a. And again, Matt gave you all this stuff, but I would recommend you follow them on Instagram. It's unobtrusive in your feed as you're scrolling through, and then also the pictures that they show will get you all excited to actually get out there and try some of their beers. So make sure you're following them at BarkingRose Brewing. We got to thank our friends at Visit Fauquier for getting behind Thirstday and our virtual FeBREWary. It's been unusual, but I have enjoyed it immensely. So thank you to Visit Fauquier. And Matt, when this is all over, I owe you a trip to BarkingRose.
Thank you so much.
But please have a couple of sessionables on tap. And if I get there in the summer, I'm going to make a request. I'm going to request a Radler.
Oh, we do them every Sunday anyway.
Yes, there you go. You don't have to do anything different.
People do yoga and they want a Radler. That makes perfect sense. It's what we do.
Want a Radler. Exactly. So, Matt, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.